So we're picking up from where we left off last time. This is the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are studying the first chapter entitled The Spiritual Masters. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All right, so we pick up on text number 44. Although I know that my spiritual master is a servitor of Sri Chaitanya, I know him also as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. So this is the author, Krishnadas Kaviraj, speaking. Now Prabhupada's purport. Every living entity is essentially a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the spiritual master is also his servant. Still, the spiritual master is a direct manifestation of the Lord. With this conviction, a disciple can advance in Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master is non-different from Krishna because he is a manifestation of Krishna. Lord Nityananda, who is Balaram himself, the first direct manifestation or expansion of Krishna, is the original spiritual master. He helps Lord Krishna in his pastimes, and he is a servant of the Lord. Every living entity is eternally a servant of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Therefore, the spiritual master cannot be other than a servant of Lord Chaitanya. The spiritual master's eternal occupation is to expand the service of the Lord by training disciples in a service attitude. A spiritual master never poses as the Supreme Lord himself. He is considered a representative of the Lord. The revealed scriptures prohibit one's pretending to be God, but a bona fide spiritual master is a most faithful and confidential servant of the Lord, and therefore deserves as much respect as Krishna. Now we continue to the next verse. According to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. Purport. The relationship of a disciple with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. A spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the personality of Godhead, but the disciple must look upon him as the manifested representation of Godhead. Please repeat, look on your page. Acharyang mang vichaniyan bolo. Navamanyeta karyachit. Namartya buddhyasuyeta. Sarvadeva mayo guru. Please repeat. One should know the Acharya as myself, and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 17, text 27, spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. The Lord was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. The Manu Samhita explains the duties of an Acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and he is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony, and after this sanskara, or a purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmana if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayu Purana, an Acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all Vedic literatures, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an Acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself as an Acharya, but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender, and this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an Acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be a direct manifestation of the Lord and a genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Deva. Influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification, mundaners criticize a real Acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide Acharya is non-different from the personality of Godhead. And therefore, to envy such an Acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive of transcendental realization. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master as a manifestation of Sri Krishna. But at the same time, one should always remember that a spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. False spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect to exploit the sentiments of their disciples. But such impersonalists can only mislead their disciples, for their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of the devotional cult. The real Vedic philosophy is Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master, and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda. Everybody say, or Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha has clearly explained that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as being one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following in the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Dasa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, later acharyas like Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur had confirmed the same truths. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead because he is a very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Gurudev, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service, and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottama Dasa Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifest representation of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. This last point. So our philosophy is that we are approaching God through the medium of his Vaya representative. We are not at that platform of our spiritual advancement where we can directly approach God. In this very same chapter, we may have already heard it, or it might be coming up. Super Soul Krishna is in the heart. But can any of us visualize, actually see that Super Soul? We're not at that platform. Therefore, Krishna in the heart externally manifests as the spiritual master. So, and the class opened up, the very first statement of the class. Everyone is the eternal servant of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And even Radharani, she is the best servant of Krishna. So the spiritual master is a servant of the servant of the servant, because that is actually what Lord Chaitanya taught. The Vaishnava, the Guru, the devotee never thinks, I am here. No. How does the devotee think? I am very insignificant. I am the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. So, Radharani that's her very name. Radha, the one who worships Krishna the best. All the gopis at the night of the Rasa dance confirmed. Since Krishna left with her and left all the others alone, they said, she must have worshipped Krishna better than us. So the spiritual master is a servant of the servant, and the best servant of Krishna, Srimati Radharani. We also heard earlier today in the beginning how Nityananda Prabhu is the first expansion of Krishna, or Balaram. And Balaram is Nityananda. Okay? So, even though Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna, later on in the 5th chapter, no, the 6th chapter, we will hear from Advaita Acharya how the conception of being a servant is higher than being God. And so much so, even God wants to take the position of servant because they want that highest ecstasy that as God they can't experience. And what am I thinking? I'm thinking I want to be God. How stupid. Advaita Acharya is pointing out, no, it is more ecstatic, more pleasurable to be the servant of God, and even God himself demonstrates it. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He looks at Radharani and says, wait a second, I'm the absolute truth. I am the reservoir of all pleasure. How come she's enjoying more than me? How is this possible? And I'm Krishna. And so, Krishna thinks the only way I'm going to figure this out, I have to become Radharani. I have to take her position as servant. Because from the position of God, he's not going to be able to experience, he won't taste it. Just like you have no way of understanding what it's like for your wife to serve you. That's her ecstasy. If you want to understand, you would have to take her role. Right? This is why this Krishna conscious philosophy as given by Prabhupada is so amazing. So the spiritual master is the servant of the servant, either in terms of Radharani, the best servant, and here is Balaram or Nityananda. He's also, even though he's the first expansion, he derives great pleasure serving Krishna. And in the Mahabharata, he would not go against Krishna. Even though he was on the side of Duryodhana, he even wanted Duryodhana to marry Subhadra. So he had great affection for the Kauravas. But because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas, Balaram said, no, I'm not going to partake in this war. Because it would be he was stuck. He can't go against Krishna, even though he's the Kauravas, there's even that chapter. Balaram was considered their patron. He was like their patron saint, so to speak. Right? So he was very affectionate to the Kauravas. But because Krishna took the side of Arjuna and the Pandavas, Balaram, I can't go against Krishna. So he stayed out. Yes, you want to say? Because he's the first spiritual master. We has already stated. So, disciplic succession, spiritual master, he's the original spiritual master. So you see your spiritual master as representative. All the spiritual masters beginning with Balaram or Sri Nityananda Prabhu.
Yeah, but so how do you differentiate that? Who will be the associate of Sri Nityananda and who will be the manifestation of Sri Nityananda? I mean, what I mean to say?
You're not going to, come on. And they're not going to wear a sign or a t-shirt. I'm the representative.
say for example, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, can you give me some example of manifesto revelation?
No, this is beyond me. Maybe my god brother can answer. I cannot answer. I preach Krishna Consciousness 101. You're asking Krishna Consciousness 12th grade. You know. Come on. All right, let's go to the next verse. So we're going to do a few verses. One should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the supersoul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. Purport. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraja Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within, he teaches as Paramatma, our constant companion, and from without, he teaches from the Bhagavad Gita as the instructing spiritual master. There are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters. One is the liberated person, fully absorbed in meditation and devotional service. And the other is he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. Thus, the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding. The Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who is authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches the disciple with full spiritual knowledge and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. That would depend on your relation. If you are my Shiksha disciple, it will depend on how you relate to me. So some people might be number one, some people might be number two. It depends on our relationship accordingly. Everything is dependent upon the relationship or the activities. Same way. How is one a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or a Shudra? It's by their actions. How are they actually working? So in the same way, depending how somebody approaches me, for some people I'm Vartma Pradarshaka. I'm showing them the first path. No one will be able to say, I am their Diksha, because that's not happening. Sorry, not in this lifetime. Shall we continue? When by learning from the self-realized spiritual master, one actually engages himself in the service of Lord Vishnu, functional devotional service begins. The procedures of this devotional service are known as abhideha, or actions one is duty-bound to perform. Our only shelter is the Supreme Lord, and one who teaches how to approach Krishna is the functioning form of the personality of Godhead. There is no difference between the shelter-giving Supreme Lord and the initiating and instructing spiritual master. If one foolishly discriminates between them, he commits an offense in the discharge of devotional service. Srila Sanatana Goswami is the ideal spiritual master, for he delivers one the shelter of the lotus feet of, everyone say, Madana Mohan. Even though one may be unable to travel on the field of Vrindavan due to forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can get an adequate opportunity to stay in Vrindavan and derive all spiritual benefits by the mercy of Sanatana Goswami. Correct. Madan Mohan, yes, and this, Prabhupada's going to mention it coming up. Sri Govinda Ji acts exactly like the Shiksha Guru, or instructing spiritual master, by teaching Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita. He is the original preceptor, for he gives us instructions and an opportunity to serve him. The initiating spiritual master is a personal manifestation of Srila Madana Mohan Vigraha, whereas the instructing spiritual master is a personal representative of Srila Govinda Dev Vigraha. Both of these deities are worshipped at Vrindavan. Srila Gopinath is the ultimate attraction in spiritual realization. Let us continue. Naivo payatti apachitang kavayastavesha brahma yushapi kritam riddha muda smaranta yontar bahistano britam ashubang vidhunvan acharya chaitya vapusha swagating vayanakti. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. Purport by Prabhupada. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Sri Uddhava after he heard from Sri Krishna all necessary instructions about yoga. Please repeat. Teshang satata yuktanang bhajatang pritipurabhagam dadami buddhi yogang tang yenamam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. This verse of the Bhagavad Gita 10:10 clearly states how Govinda Dev instructs his bona fide devotee. The Lord declares that by enlightenment in theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead. They know that the supreme truth, the all-spiritual and all-powerful person, is one without a second and has fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations. Such pure devotees, always merged in knowledge of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists exchange their views and discuss the results of their research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Krishna give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotees with all enlightenment. And I would like to add a point here, that here, this facility to be able to share with others, this is rare, because you're not necessarily going to have this with everyone. So if you find a devotee that you can, as it says here, exchange thoughts and realizations, that devotee, that's your best friend. Because you're able, and that other person, you share your realizations. So even if you just have one devotee that you have that relationship with, that's gold. And if you have more than one, then you're part of the transcendental 1%. Shall we continue? All right.
So, you can also speak your spiritual, so you can share your thoughts.
If you have that, not everybody has that relationship. Because even with the spiritual master and all, not every disciple has that relationship. Me, I don't, you know, Prabhupada was like, I could not even look at him. I was so shy and afraid because he could see right through me all my sin. Others, they may have a more than you in your relationship. I've seen you have very nice relationship. And I don't know if you picked up in the beginning, one of the first things we read today, you can know something of your relationship with Krishna based on your relationship with your spiritual master. That's an indicator. Okay. Let's see if I want to. Yes, we're going to stop here because now it begins a second, a different train of thought. And besides, we have my God brother here. So everybody chant the Maha Mantra.